7:04 PM, I'm gonna bring the Dunbarton Selectmen's meeting to order. All three selectmen are present, town administrator, town clerk, fire chief, and Leo Martella's video recording for the benefit of the public, and Lyndon Nickerson's gonna download those to the town website. Gentlemen, I have some old business.
I make a motion to approve the minutes, the regular minutes of May 29th, 2025.
I'll second that after an amendment.
You wanna see them to show where it is, Taylor?
Yeah, when I was reporting on, the town, give me a second here. The Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, Technical Advisory Committee, the reports that are on town census data, percent of residents 65 years and over. It says 65% and over.
Okay.
So that percent needs to be years.
Make
Are
it
we
any
gonna
change?
mark it up here, or?
Yes.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Motion's been made with amendments here at the meeting, any second?
I second the motion.
Yeah,
You made the motion.
We know, but I think it's the amendment.
yeah, that's right, you'll, I wanna make the amendment, you're gonna second it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
The amendment? Aye.
Aye.
With the amendment, right?
No, I wanna discuss the minutes for a moment.
Okay.
Last meeting, we had a discussion on, with the Kilmore property, we had a great discussion, and I was under the.
Kilmore?
Kilmore, yeah.
That's the surveyor, it's actually
Well,
Byron.
Byron's property with the Kilmore survey here. They left with the impression that they couldn't do anything with the lot. I think that's not the correct impression I wanted them to leave. I talked to Donna, I talked to Lean this week. There are still I want to go on the record, there are options for them to pursue. Whether it be purchasing a little bit of the roadway, whether it be creating agreements with the abutters, but there are ways they can upgrade the existing roadbed to have access to the property. They could have a private way, but I just don't wanna leave them, I wanna go on record that there are ways that they can build their home and have a subdivision there. But they just gotta, it's gonna be, the legwork is gonna be upon them to talk to abutters, get access, and then eventually improve the road to our standards, and then they can access their property. But there are multiple ways of doing it, albeit a private way, upgrading the road, talking to abutters and getting permission. If the goal is to have it become a public road, we'll have to have a hearing and all that, but I wanna go on the record by saying there are ways for them to pursue that subdivision and get a house out there and use their property. I just, it was almost doom and gloom we left them with, and it's not doom and gloom, there are ways of doing it. And I just wanna go on the record for saying that.
Yeah, there are, the ways to do it have many, many steps. One of which, you can't subdivide a piece of property that's not on a class 5 road in our subdivision process, so they'll have to go to the zoning board as well as work on the road situation with the select board, so it's quite a process. I did go out and visit the site yesterday and saw the, Byrons on the way out, and I told them about some of the options Mike has spoke about tonight. And I said that we were willing to help them in any way we can here at the town level. Typically, the due diligence is on the applicant or the landowner, or their agent, to try and bring this stuff to light and do the research at the registry and at the town level and working through the town clerk and the building office here, so.
Yeah.
I did tell them we would research some additional items on them, I told them we were gonna try and put a timeline together within the next few weeks to see what ends of the road were discontinued and which ones weren't, and try and have an accurate timeline, because a lot of the stuff was done through the years there, and part of the good old boy stuff was, the home is, they wanna put in is before the last home that's out there, the Byron's home, so. It seems sensible, but, and that end of the road is actually better than the front part of the road as well, but,
And I thought the minutes reflected that the issue isn't closed, but there's some
Yeah.
options that have to be considered.
I just wanna make sure we're definitely in favor of helping them in any way we can, and there are avenues to approach, but the legwork is gonna be upon the applicant.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to have a little discussion on, because I don't wanna have the end of subject, no further discussion needed. There is an option for them, options, I'll leave it at that, and that's all I have to say, thank you.
Okay, so now to close out the meeting minutes, meeting's been, approved, and Mike, you guys sign that out. All in favor of the meeting minutes?
Aye.
Aye,
And I'm gonna abstain till they get a chance to finish reading them.
okay.
And then we have a non-public, minute, of May 29th. I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes.
And I'll second that motion.
They are not sealed.
Okay, motion been made second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, tonight, anybody here for public comment that's not on the?
Yeah,
Nope. You have something, Leo?
just wanted to thank Donna and the building department for replenishing the candy dish.
Oh, did she? I didn't notice on the way in.
Yeah, I did.
Alright,
His favorites.
thank you to Donna. Alright, we have the town clerk first on town business today with the dog warrants. Come on up, Jennifer.
Okay, shall we do the appointment papers first, they're quick, or is it
Okay,
the
sure.
other order? Sorry, I hadn't grabbed,
That's alright.
I have those on the top of my stuff. So we have alternate cemetery trustee Julie Larson
Okay,
and deputy tax collector Lean Camo.
okay. I'm gonna have you make a motion for these. What we generally do is read their name, the area they're gonna be for, and their term ending.
Okay. Alright, I'll make a motion for Julie Larson of Dunbarton, in the position of alternate cemetery trustee with the term ending March 2026.
Okay, and the next one,
Make a motion included with Lean Como of Dunbarton for deputy tax collector, term ending March 2028.
okay. Both
I'll
those
second those.
motions
I'll
on the
second
table.
those.
Michael second both of them, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion's been made, let's go ahead and sign them up.
Did you forget your glasses? Or are you wearing contacts?
No, I don't have glasses.
Oh, you don't wear
No.
glasses?
No,
Just me.
I just wanted to make sure I was signing on the right line, cause I see Dave sometimes signs on the wrong line.
I always sign the top one. Okay, what else do you have, Jennifer?
Okay, now on to dog warrants, and I have 3 copies of the RSA and the warrant, so I'll distribute those first. And then I'll speak to it.
Okay,
So the RSA is on the second page, which spells out the process that we need to go through.
and nothing's changed on that from last year, right?
And nothing has changed, I double checked online that the RSA has not changed.
Okay,
So this year we sent out 15 emails to dog owners. And then that was between March and just last week. Reminder letters were snail mailed as of May 9th, with a deadline of May 29th. I can give you a copy of that as well, while I'm reading it. And because there were over 170 owners, that cost the town well over $100 in postage, just to have to snail mail those who were behind. So I'm requesting that you issue a warrant to the Dunbarton PD, directing them to issue a civil forfeiture for each unlicensed dog.
there's only 15 this year?
So this year there are, did I not write that?
I thought you said 15 earlier when you were talking, that's all.
I don't think I mentioned how many, I said there were 15 emails.
Oh, okay,
That were sent out. So there were 43 dog owners representing 60 dogs. The list is confidential.
yeah. Now, there was
So
a
the
little-
reminder letters to 170, that's to all owners, and you're saying that there's 43 that did not,
Right, letters sent to
Respond.
over 170 and
Okay.
43 remaining that,
Was there an extension this year for some reason or something,
on what?
on the dog licensing or anything?
procedure, late
Okay.
fees began June 1, but I did not initiate the $25 fee yet,
Okay,
pending our meeting. I think
Okay.
sometime in prior years it was, might have sometimes been initiated right at the beginning of June.
oh, okay.
So
That
yeah,
must be-
people got a little extra grace,
Okay,
and we're still waiting though on that.
And for the record, for the public, the thing is, it may seem like a petty nuisance type of sort of thing, but the dog licenses are to affirm the vaccination that the dogs receive for rabies.
you need only one copy signed, Jen?
All three.
All three,
Okay.
yeah, one is for me, one for you, one
Scribble
for,
away on them.
police department.
Can I give those to Mike for reading?
Is this is an annual process that you go through?
That's correct.
We didn't always do it, we've been doing it for the last, I
And you
think,
can
3
keep-
years, 4 years.
Yeah, you can keep the RSA,
Well, I've been here for 10 years and I only done it like 3 years, so.
We just, it's a memory loss. as
You think so? I never used to arrest
Sometimes
dogs.
she would be behind schedule and process it in July, but
You
it
have to
was
decide on
mandatory.
yeah.
That's the RSA, right, Jennifer?
What's that?
That's an RSA,
It's an RSA,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm
So
always
I
opposed
made
to
extra, I
arresting the
made 3
dogs.
copies, so I'm sure you can keep a copy.
Okay,
And then
Copy
one for,
Will
one
be
for
put-
Lean,
Copy for
one for,
here, okay.
you can take one.
I'd like to give that back to Jeff, so it's confidential.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
Take that
doesn't,
back, yeah.
that doesn't need to go with the,
I usually have one copy with
Oh, do
me.
you? Okay.
thank you.
I'll put your one here, Lean, and you can have these two.
Okay, so I'll put that one there,
Okay.
and everybody signed on their lines, right?
I think we did.
And how soon does this start to be implemented? This
So I
forfeiture?
leave things for the police department tonight before I go, hopefully,
Okay,
as well as emailing them you have a list of the owners, they'll receive a list of all the dogs, so
okay.
that they can follow up with warrants.
I'll give you ample time to memorize your friends.
Yeah,
You know, some of the challenges are like, some of the dogs have passed, and the owners don't always notify the town clerk that the dogs have passed.
yeah,
And so that kinda compounds the matter, oh, my dog died last year, and that's just another step that they verify.
yeah,
Right, or that the dog, or that the dog or the person moved with the dog.
Okay.
Sometimes the dog is rehomed.
yeah,
So we've tracked down a lot of those, but there's still people, we haven't called every single person.
yeah.
But it's hard when you start out with that many people to track down.
We need to reactivate the pound.
I'm not suggesting that.
Well, now that you bring that up, Dana, we did have some of my nephews, I think, clean that out when they got married, and
Oh,
it's
yeah?
grown back up now.
Oh,
We should put that on the agenda for a couple weeks from now to have the, hog breeds come into the select office, and we'll have them
Okay.
clip that out.
clean the pound?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the one
It's the one
responsibility.
duty we try and have
Yeah.
them do to
Yeah.
become good residents in town and volunteer, so thanks for bringing that up. I had meant to do that before in the past, but
Okay.
we started as a joke with some of my relatives, and I think we're gonna continue it.
I think it's a good, it's a one morning of community service.
Yeah. One other process question, so do the police, when they go to the house or to contact the people, do they have the ability to square it away there,
We
like,
need to collect the fee.
yeah,
I don't know that they do, they issue the warrant,
Yeah.
and then the people pay at the town clerk's office.
oh, okay,
And then if they don't pay within the set time period, it goes to court. So it's much better if people pay up, because then the town collects the money, and if it goes to court, then the court gets the money, or
Okay.
we don't see it.
do
I don't
the
wanna
police have
speak-
handcuffs
I
for
don't wanna
4
speak for
paws?
the police, but I think that they do a quick, email and a call list first, so
Okay.
that they're not.
That's what I was wondering in terms of like
I think they
standard
do
procedure.
that, yeah.
They don't go with the 4 paw cuffs.
I don't think they go to every resident right to start with, I think.
No, I think they use electronic means initially.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if, I don't provide the contact info,
Right.
because that's not,
mhm,
that's a privacy issue, but I think last year they may have mailed letters.
yeah, they did something, I know
Yeah.
that.
And it's interesting how people, if they see police department and return address, suddenly they pay attention more than,
We need to
Town
get you a new
clerk.
Town
stamp.
clerk, yeah.
Jeff, make her a deputy.
All right, thanks, anything else for us, Jen?
That's all, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. We have some funds that have come in, from an old home day vendor that's signed up. We'd like to, we have to approve these funds in Dana to put them in the old home day appropriate budget.
Can I just bring him up to speed?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the RSA, 31:95-B3B allows, if you've adopted it, a town meeting allows the town to accept unanticipated revenue, and those are the only revenues over and above your operating budget for expenses that you can spend over and so you can either, the board can vote to put it in the general fund surplus, or there are other ways in the past few years, because there's limited funds in the operating budget for Old Home Day with vendors and fees going up. They've asked the board to, when they collect these funds, to accept them, but allow them to spend it in the event they don't have enough money to pay all their
Okay,
exhibits.
and are these from 2024?
25,
They're, so they're
They
new,
started
they're
early this year.
started coming in
Yeah,
already,
yeah.
okay.
Mike, you wanna make the
Yeah.
motion?
I'll make a motion for RSA 31:95-B, subparagraph Roman number 3B, to accept unanticipated funds for $640 from the Old Home Day vendor fees collected to date, and subsequently approve the use of these funds towards additional expenses over and above the Old Home Day appropriation budget.
I'll second Mike's motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next one on the agenda is Dana for an update of the, community power.
Yeah, so, an update to provide tonight is, Standard Power was our vendor that we had a memorandum of understanding with to proceed with community power. They brought us through a lot of the process, they did, they facilitated some town meetings for us. They helped us, with everything that we needed to do to get approved for proceeding with community power. Standard Power was recently acquired by a company called Relevate Power. And one of the principals there, Bob Hayden, who was one of the folks that we had met at a previous meeting, he retired, and it was a planned retirement. And Emily Manns was our contact for community power, that worked for Standard Power. She has since contacted us and indicated that there were some possible non-interest in Relevate Power continuing their work in community power. And she had decided to leave Standard Power and was going on a different career path with another company. She didn't tell me who it was at that point. I then subsequently contacted Standard Power and tried to contact them. They didn't answer my responses. Now, I didn't do it exhaustively. I kind of did it through my normal channels of Bob and Emily, and I figured those emails would be forwarded to somebody at Standard Power. But they didn't answer so far. Emily has, since I've communicated with her, she is now working for a company called ECM Power. ECM Power is her new employer, and she is willing to facilitate continuing as our representative for community power. We are approaching June 15th, which was one of our dates where the utilities, both Eversource and Unitil, are going to be announcing their rates for August 1st to February. So the timing of this is not optimal, because we should be in the process of getting pricing to see how we would compete with the utility pricing coming out. Standard Power is not doing anything for us at this point in time. Because we don't have a contract, we could decide to have Emily and ECM Power facilitate pricing for us. She is still in contact with all of the power brokers that she would have been in contact with at Standard Power, and it is my recommendation that we do proceed with authorizing ECM Power to act on our behalf. I would likely send something to Standard Power that just says, you know, at this point in time, we're not in need of your services, for our community power, just so that there isn't any possibility of duplicate efforts or confusion there. So that's my recommendation. The timing is right now, if we miss this window, I'm not saying that the window will produce a power pricing that is better than utility, but we should always be doing this every time utilities are coming.
Even if we don't get it, we'll exhaust our efforts trying.
That's right.
Now, I have no issue with that, will we have to do one of those contracts with her?
She's not requiring a MOU with her at this point. What she does require is, we need to tell Eversource and Unitil a letter authorizing her to get the utility data, cause she needs, the utilities actually need to see the data or collect the data from the towns in terms of how much power this town is consuming, so that ECM Power can go out and say, hey, Dunbarton has this much power, we'd like to bid this out. So all we need to do, and it's a single page letter, we've actually already developed a draft
And,
naming ECM Power as our
will she be
authorized.
grouping us like they did at the other companies?
Would she what?
Be grouping us?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I don't know with how many, right?
They were looking for about 100,
They were looking for 100 gigawatt hours, and
Gigawatt
we are about 6 to 7 gigawatt hours.
that's what I remember.
Yeah. So I think it's just worth the effort to see what she can do.
I'm in consensus then, you want,
For pricing.
I think we're all. in
I think it's
consensus.
a kind of a no-loss situation for us. I think, it can only benefit us. I would hate to miss this cycle and then find out that we could've
But we worked hard to
gotten
get to this cycle, I hate to miss it as well, and even if we don't purchase anything or make a contract, at least we've done our due diligence as a select board. You had a question, Jennifer?
Yes, Jennifer Cormier, just wondering if the data is just like a total gigawatt hours, or if there's any household data, any?
It's anonymized, so they do get the data is by property, so they'll actually show the data by property in the town when it comes from Eversource or Unitil, but it's all anonymized, you don't know who it is.
Without looking up, just doing a reverse kind of stuff?
I don't know if, you wouldn't even know like it's your neighbor, because you don't know what your neighbor is consuming for power, it just says, here's a,
Does it give a street
Oh,
address?
it doesn't
Nope.
give the street
oh no,
address?
it's not even a street ad.
Oh, okay.
Probably a
So
poll
it's by-
license or something.
Yeah, it's
So it's a
kind of like
list of
I think it's a
households?
meter number,
Ah, there we go.
and you'd have to like go to your neighbor and look at their meter to find out which one on the list they were. Even if you got the data, so I think it's a fairly standard request, the utilities provide this for information purposes in terms of how much power.
So nobody's gonna know if I'm growing anything.
No. I'm Unitil in my area, I was actually able
I was
to.
just asking for you, Jennifer.
I was able to go on there and find myself, but even that was kind of difficult for me to see. And the other piece of data that they do, present when the utilities provide this, because ECM Power or Standard Power, we need to know this, is you can tell if someone has a net meter and is generating power at that location. Because then there's actually lines on there, like during the summertime, where it's power going out, not just power coming in. So those are grouped differently and need to be identified, for the community power folks. So,
Alright, thank you.
this would be authorizing them to get the data from Unitil and
It's
Eversource.
no different when we authorized for community power in the past.
It's no different.
Right.
It's just basically authorizing someone new to ask for the data.
I'd say nothing ventured, nothing gained, we should go for it.
That's what I think, and that's why I wanted to present it, and the
If nothing
timing.
else, it should wake Standard Power up.
Yeah.
If they wanna be woken.
Right, and they may not be interested in continuing, community power, as part of their business. It might not have been worth it to them, maybe it was a Bob Hayden thing, you know.
1/10 of 1 cent, right?
Yeah, yep, and, Emily did say that ECM Power will be honoring the same type of 1/10 of a cent, you know,
Oh, good.
I'd say
cost.
the only goal that I think Dave had, and I shared that same goal with Dave, is we like to get a low cost, long term.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
And the thing is,
I'm not
that's
too
6
interested in 6-month terms.
Yeah. yeah,
it just, makes no sense to be looking at this stuff every 6 months if we can avoid it.
If we can avoid it, yeah,
I just thought I'd throw that out there, it was,
Yeah,
so that's my request.
okay.
okay, sounds
I'd say
good.
consensus, we go for it.
Yep.
And Lean, do you have some drafts already ready to go?
Yeah, the letter's ready, but I will draft up a letter to Standard Power letting them know we
Yeah,
need their
okay.
services, yeah.
I think, I think Lean could sign as town administrator with no problem.
I think when we originally set this up, I was a designee for
Yeah.
signing.
Yeah,
so-
okay. I wanna just make it easier for you.
Okay, the next, thing on the agenda is authorize Dan Lavoy and Lean Como to act on behalf of the town to look at telecom options to regard for local and long distance calling for all town buildings. Telecom, tell us about it, Dana.
yeah, so, I have a technology background, I own an IT company, I've dealt with some of this before in terms of, ways to reduce cost to companies and businesses in terms of their telecom or internet costs. And so Lean and I have been talking, I've seen the monthly costs that go to Dunbarton, telephone, and also the costs that go to the long distance provider, I don't remember the vendor offhand.
Clear Line, which formerly was Pioneer.
Okay, yeah. And I think it's just open up a dialogue with the vendors, just to say, are there opportunities here for us to, reduce our costs for our telephone services? And just get a better understanding of what we're getting and what that cost is. And after we would do that, assessment, we could bring back to this board any recommendations on changes.
And I also noticed even working with the telephone company, there are companies that offer them options to do different types of purchases for long distance calling as well. Like I used to call around 603, and I thought that as long as I had it, I was grandfathered, but I no longer see that on my bill any longer, so. When I call out, I get charges as well, so I have to follow up on that, but I do know that you can also work with them on different call programs that might or might not be available through them.
I did some research for long distance and Pioneer, I had the same company, for the last 10 years, I've been super happy with that company. They're very, very low cost for long distance services.
And they recently did raise their prices.
Yeah, there was some,
But no, it's, to me, it's like, it's nothing, I don't worry about, sometimes you used to worry about calling long distance during the day.
Right,
Not even an issue.
right,
but this
Now-
is for all the town buildings,
correct.
so.
Yeah,
Correct, but, so the only thing that I'll mention is like, at my own place of business, I have what I call a landline. But it works through my fiber internet connection.
Gotcha.
And I pay about $12 a month for that line, and that is all inclusive. That's local calling, that's caller ID, that's voicemail, and it's all long distance to Canada and the United States for $12 a month. I'm not saying that I can get that same thing for the town, but that's something to,
And so you don't have a line through Dunbarton telephone at all at the house?
I do only because it's contractually required for me to have fiber internet.
Okay,
So I have a
That's
line,
what I
I
have
have
as
no
well.
phone connected to that line, so if you're leaving me messages on my 774 number, Dunbarton telephone probably knows that a lot of people in town dead end it, they don't use it,
You're spot on correct.
yes.
They may be in the book, but they have no
You're
line.
in the book, but nobody's
No
answering.
one's listening.
okay,
So I think this is just to explore what we have, and what our possible options are, and we could bring back any findings.
I have no issues, I look forward to the results.
oh, Jennifer, go ahead.
As a town employee, it would be helpful for me to know what are local calls free? And how much is it long distance that we're currently paying, just as we make decisions about whether we're calling somebody or not, if we can get away with email or waiting,
Okay,
just to.
I guess
or time
once
of
we do this
day,
research, we'll probably follow up.
There's
with
a breakdown of his fees, of the rates,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or even as it is right now.
Yeah.
Time.
Just 'cause-
I'm sure Lean could probably answer some of that, knowing what it,
On occasion, I brought the long distance calls to the department's attention because it would be a low cost for several months and all of a sudden a spike, and it was related to one department's phone number. So I just bring it to the attention, say, pay attention, don't stay on the phone long, because sometimes you have to converse with someone for tax purposes, or vehicle registration, or a vendor, or, someone selling the vehicle. But be conscientious of how much time you spend, because when you see 60 minutes or 70 minutes, or, you know, you know, are you on hold for training, or it could be a lot of things.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
there are some of the trainings that are long distance for us.
So once we get a breakdown, or even if we have a breakdown, if we decide not to change it, maybe we can send something to the
We can
department heads.
share the
to show-
information.
It
Yeah.
shows how much it costs, so you guys are aware of it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for disclosure
Doesn't hurt,
purposes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be helpful, cause we do try to be very conscientious, and I don't know if we're being overly conscientious in some cases, like our
Right.
local calls free or not, you know,
They
that
are.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They are,
Yeah,
okay.
Also just what is defined as a local call, that is a.
Yeah, is it
that's
if we don't have to dial one, then it's local? That's how my
Yes.
understanding?
that's correct, cause I
Okay.
usually have to dial twice.
And some
Right.
people thought that you could
I
call
guess-
Goffstown and
Right,
abutting towns as well, so that should be
Well,
spelled.
but there's
Concord is not a long distance,
Concord's not,
no,
yeah, but I actually, there's some surrounding town that is a long distance that I was surprised.
Most
about.
frustrating too, when you dial the number, you think it's local,
I
and it's
think it
not.
might be Goffstown.
Yeah,
Goffstown might be long distance.
I know
And-
Manchester's long distance.
Yeah, so I think Goffstown's in the same kind
I
of,
think it is in that too.
in the same block. So this will all be just a good fact finding,
Yeah.
and then we can, you know, if
Look
there
at
are any,
options.
if there are any recommendations or options, we can discuss it.
Cause I only have a few people that call my house phone continuous and talk to me, and I can see them on my bill regular, I'm like, call myself.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, I also wonder if all these calls we're making to cell phones that require a one, are those a long distance? We have a lot of people who are moving into
I believe that most of
Dunbarton.
them would be.
Yeah,
They're long distance.
Yeah, because they're, like, if you're getting cell phone numbers, they're probably out of
718.
they're probably out of an exchange, you know, like I have an exchange out of Nashua. So
Yeah.
if you call my cell phone, that's a long distance call.
okay,
Yeah,
so moving on here, Dana, you got an update, you went to an in-person meeting, I understand?
yeah, so the New Hampshire Municipal Association, has held a in-person training in Jaffrey last week that I attended. It was an all-day training, went from 8:30 till 4:45 in the afternoon. Jam-packed with information, had all kinds of information regarding how towns operate, town meetings, proper procedures, and also explaining a lot of the resources that NHMA provides. I know that the town has relied heavily on their advice and their resources in the past. They can help you draw up warrant articles, have the right wording for things. It was an extremely beneficial meeting, for me, and also there was a lot of people there that were there for refreshers. It went through right to know, it went through even how meetings like this are supposed to be conducted and whatnot. So I just wanted to share that I did go to that. I took a number of notes. I have all of the material is not provided in hard copy anymore, but it's all electronic, and so I can actually, I have it all stored away, and I can provide Lean and whoever else wants copy of all of this. NHMA, I learned, does represent 100% of the towns and cities in the state of New Hampshire. That is, something that they boast about. There isn't a single town or city that doesn't use them and isn't signed on.
Why wouldn't you, I guess, it makes no
Yeah.
sense.
And these folks, have a lot of legal expertise.
We've saved a lot of money in the past, over the years
Absolutely.
with illegal
I
advice.
can only imagine, because they are there for answering questions. They won't provide advice on an individual case,
But
particularly,
sometimes you
but
just
they
need
can,
that, need that one answer.
they can provide general advice on a situation,
Yes.
right?
And Lean's used one of our warrants several
Yeah.
times, so I know that it works.
Yeah, it does work. So, it's, you know, I think the public should know that that is a good resource for the town, and I would, you know, highly endorse utilizing them for whatever they have. I did take some notes. There are some things that I might, you know, just bring up with Lean in terms of, cause I ask questions being new on this
Yeah.
board in terms of how things have been done and why we're doing, are we arresting dogs and things like that. So, I think it's worthwhile for me to ask some questions that came up
Absolutely.
when I was there, to
Yeah.
find out
How we're handling it.
how we're handling it, is there a better way of handling it, and things of that
If you see
nature.
anything on these meetings, Dana, that you think that we should change or bring up to us.
Yeah.
And, we'll work on that, because I know we've kind of followed Robert's Rules of Orders here for some of the stuff here, and we've gone back and forth, but these meetings have evolved quite a bit since just the time I've become selectman, so.
Yeah, Okay,
Yeah, I think one of the things was like, one example is we allow public to give comment, not only during public comment, but like during the meeting, if there's a subject matter expert and this can be helpful to us, we will entertain any comment.
A lot of times, like, public comment was either limited or not. Once the board was deliberating about stuff, they didn't talk to the public a lot. A lot of previous meetings, we've been pretty open with it, and it seems to work, and unless there's a huge crowd in here, we don't really have to control it too badly, and the time doesn't seem to be carried on too far.
right.
Speaking of that,
Just curious, is that a state program or is that federal funded?
It's a state or a nonprofit organization.
the municipal association.
Yeah,
we all
so
choose.
all towns and cities pay a fee
Oh,
to
okay.
them to
All right.
support their
Yeah,
operation.
all right, thank you.
And they actually do also have lobbyists at the State House, to actually help with the various bills,
So
either to support the bills or oppose the bills, and
It's all
they're looking out for the towns.
Yeah, right, but it's all contained in this, within the state,
It is all within the
Oh,
state,
good,
yeah,
okay.
and they're based out of Concord,
okay.
which would make sense.
If you see that section for our meetings, send it over to me, I'd like to read it.
Okay, yeah,
But yes, I've wanted to go to a lot of those too and haven't had the time with my work, so I'm glad that you did have the time to go.
yeah,
It's
Then you
important, I
did
think.
exactly what I did when I first came on, I went to the one-day session.
did you,
Yeah,
okay.
and it was very helpful.
It was jam-packed with information, right? You can only retain so much, so I can imagine that it's also a good refresher thing for anybody to go to, also that.
It always is, everything's always evolving and changing as well.
It is in a, yeah, it totally is, and I'll just give you a little detail, like, I didn't realize that there was different RSAs for vacancies on all various committees, so the town clerk, if there's a vacancy, it specifies in the RSA how you fill that vacancy. If selectmen, a select board, or cemetery trust, all of these, they all have separate RSAs on how you would deal with a vacancy, and they're, all might be slightly different, so like, you can't just assume that, hey, this is how we did it for the cemetery trustees, we should do the same thing for the library.
Yeah.
Might not be the case.
Yeah.
So things like that were super enlightening, with it. The one item I actually wanted to bring up, and I'll only bring up one that did come up, is, because of some activity that's gone on in some other towns around the state, there was discussion about whether towns have a policy for, stating that whether you can put signs on town property or demonstrate on town property with, I guess with things like signs, and do we know if Dunbarton has any policy saying that you can or cannot do that?
I know that we have,
We have one for the comment.
We have a procedure, and I can't recall if it's an official policy.
so we have a town common policy here that we've worked on, in the past years, it was probably 3 years ago now. But I know that, we don't allow political signs up here, anywhere here at the school on any of the town properties.
Okay, that is a recommendation by NHMA, is to state that town property is not eligible for free speech. You are not obligated to allow free speech, signage on town property, but you should state it in a town policy.
Okay,
So that's one thing, just one little takeaway that I grabbed, they talked about Bow, up the road here, and they have that gazebo area.
Yeah,
In that gazebo area, they control the signs that go there. They're approved by the select board of Bow as to what can go there. So if it's a Girl Scout cookie sale or something like that, they have to approve that.
yeah.
And
You'll
they're,
notice people come to us frequently to put signs up here, on different corners here when different events are going on within the town.
okay, yeah,
and then Mike walks around and takes them off the property and brings them to the offices.
In other words, over the weekend, I'll be here on a Friday, it's nice and clear.
Yeah.
By Sunday, I have 3 political signs out, and some sheriff is running for sheriff.
oh,
And so I just pull them up and put them right by the front door, then they usually deposit all political signs that we pick up behind the police station until after the election. They can pick them up anytime they want.
okay,
We don't destroy them until they don't wanna pick them up anymore.
okay,
But the thing is, to see them on the town common, you don't wanna come up here and see these political signs, they grow like mushrooms.
yeah. And that's actually what they brought up, is that, if you don't have a policy stating that can't happen, people could say you don't have a policy, so
I
I can
think,
stick
I'm
it
almost
in.
positive we did have a sign, we do have a sign policy.
It might just be,
I'm not
maybe it's
sure.
just for the common,
I think it is.
and not for like what the front lawn right here, or down at the fire station, or,
I think it's town common and or town property.
Property, yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to look at it.
yeah, why don't we just check that, so that's
It's
the
been a
one,
few
that's the
years.
one little, takeaway that I brought back,
Yeah,
so.
it was like 3 years ago we had that issue come up, I think, 3, 4. I
Okay.
think Bob was still on the board.
That's my conclusion of my update
Okay,
on NHMA.
you're shut off for time.
I know.
Okay, fire chief, come on up. You wanna discuss some, maintenance concerns for the EMS ambulance replacement.
He's stuck in the chair.
Now, you had done this once before already, right, this year? You have some things that you needed for the ambulance, already in the ambulance fund?
I
Or you
had
funded
some,
them through your department, something like that, right?
yeah, I had some, I did the warrant article for the big ticket items that I saw as a need,
Okay.
to practice at the paramedic level. And then just saw the rising costs of equipment and the rising need for the equipment, the things that we were finding that were expired or not kept up.
Yeah, I thought you
Um,
did come to us once a few weeks back,
It was for the
right?
fire engine that
The maintenance one for the engine,
Okay.
the exhaust thing.
Oh, the,
needed-
yeah.
yeah, the.
No, he came for that.
Emissions
Waiver
override.
Yeah,
Yeah, he came for that, but he also did come for ambulances, a lot of stuff was outdated, I think, wasn't it?
yes, yeah, and we still continue to find some of that stuff, not necessarily just on the ambulance, but in storage and in stock. So, yeah, so I guess to start there, as of, the last, the 10th, this would have been 2 days ago, when Hope sent me my, my expense, report here for my short report. I had, in my EMS line item, my EMS equipment line item, I was, just under 90% spent, so I had 10% left for that budget for the year. That's a $3,500 budget line. We had spent $3,124.47. Now to provide a little background to you on this, $3,500 is a very low line item limit, and we're allowed to keep a low line item because of our medical resource agreement that we have with Concord Hospital. So every service in the state of New Hampshire that wants to practice medicine, it has to have an agreement with a medical resource hospital. And one of the benefits that we have with Concord Hospital is that they offer us a list of EMS supplies that we can obtain from them at no cost, which is huge. So it turns out to be about 75 to 80% of the supplies that we use on a regular basis we can acquire from them at no cost. It's as simple as placing an order, sending it to the coordinator for the hospital, and then going to pick up those supplies when they come in. Some of the more advanced life support specific equipment, we do actually have to buy out of pocket because they're not common items that are used by the hospital, so they don't have them available to us. The last order that I just placed the other day was just under $2,000 for some advanced life support equipment, which puts me well over the 10% that was left in the budget. So I'm overspent on that line item alone.
Do you have other line items that you think you'll have under, so your budget itself will balance? Have you-
Still evaluating that,
Okay,
yeah.
cause a lot of times people will go over some section of their budget,
Of
but
course.
they have another whole section that they know won't get utilized, whether it's computer maintenance fees or whatever it is.
Yeah,
So that's the
I'm-
biggest thing that we have people generally do.
so I'm hopeful, and I'll explain where my hope comes from in just a minute here too.
Okay.
So that $2,000, near $2,000, isn't the end of what I need to spend to be able to replace the fire equipment and get some stuff back and ready for service. So several years back, the police department and the fire department applied for a grant through the state of New Hampshire to purchase some equipment that's called warm zone EMS equipment. So that allows for the police department and the fire department to team up in the event of high-risk scenarios, and be able to provide medicine in a scenario, in a situation that might not necessarily be considered safe by 100% standards. So warm zone is the equivalent of a high-risk event, an active shooter event where they haven't confirmed that all of the shooters have been stopped, situations like that. So the equipment includes ballistic plate carriers, a med bag that has some trauma supplies that of course all expire. So this stuff wasn't wasn't kept up on, it's all expired, and it's probably gonna cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 to $1,000 to replenish all the stuff in that gear, so that I can get it back in service and on the ambulance. So that's gonna put me even further over, if we do that, and then, my biggest worry is that I still have another 6 months left, plus in the year, so. I just want you to be aware of it. The line item that I think I'm hopeful to be able to save the most from, is my protection equipment line item. So protection equipment, as a $10,000 line item, is designed for specifically personal and protective equipment, so.
Replacing
our
some
gear.
blades and adding a new.
Yeah, so PPE, is kind of the most expensive ticket that comes into that. For me to outfit one firefighter is roughly $5,500.
Yeah,
So this gets me just under 2 full firefighters worth of gear. The reason that I'm hopeful I'll have that money left at the end of the year is I just recently applied for a grant which would get us 4 sets of gear at no cost, so roughly $18,000 worth of equipment. That grant is through the NVSC, the National Volunteer Fire Council. They teamed up with investors, State Farm, and some other donating companies to be able to offer this to volunteer agencies across the country. So they've accepted our grant. It was a narrow window, and they're going to slowly start to notify agencies between now and the end of the year if they receive the equipment. So if we do, it's 4 sets of gear and four helmets. We don't get to choose what it is. It's they're partnered with a company called DuPont and another one called MSA.
oh, nice.
But the equivalent of about $18,000 worth of gear.
So you could eventually shift some of that 10,000 over to the other line.
Yes. Yeah, my plan would be to not spend any more out of that, and be able to reserve that to hopefully make up for the EMS line item, so.
What's your current spend on that 10,000 line?
Current spend is $2,113. So there's a helmet in there, there's a few sets of structural firefighting gloves, some smaller items.
As a select board chair and select board on here for years, we've had several departments come close to spending their full amount, but we've actually never, since I've been, on selectmen, never had any go over yet. But there are some options, because say you go over and somebody else, the road agent comes under, I mean, as an overall budget, we're still, looking good at the end of the year.
Sure.
But, we can't pull from somebody's department and put it in yours.
Of course.
But if you go over, you go over, and I mean, we'll have to live with it. I think it's good that we all know about it.
Of course, yeah, and this is all about transparency. I just wanna be,
Yeah.
I wanna be transparent with you with where we're at with the department, with where we're at with equipment.
Yeah, and then obviously this is your first year, next year you can look at your budgets and say, okay, we need to adjust this line item and, change that around and.
Yeah,
And I think that's the learning lesson here, because now you have your feet are on the ground more, you know exactly where the needs are versus in wants and stuff.
sure.
My concern is that, is anything, are you shorted so much or something that we could prevent you from going on a call and responding to someone? That's my concern,
No, I don't think we're there.
okay?
Um,
If we get there, then we'll be more creative in our financing.
Of course.
But I don't think we wanna jeopardize the ability to respond to anything.
Yeah, I don't think we're there. I don't think we'll get there, especially not within this budget year. We do have, and we have robust agreements with mutual aid agencies as well.
Okay.
I think we're in a good spot as far as response.
And I really think by next year's budget, you'll have a better feel for exactly where your needs are.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And wasn't there an agreement with hospitals replenishing stuff, and that kind of changed a little bit as well, right?
No, so again, as a transporting agency, we have to select a hospital, that we have that agreement with in order to get a transporting license from the Bureau of EMS. It's usually done based on, the population of the town and where the greatest percentage of the population seeks their care, so, for us being closer to Concord, we have more people that actually seek their care from Concord Hospital and Concord Hospital related practices than CMC or Manchester or, anything south of the, toward Manchester. So, we can always elect to change that if we want, but I can tell you with my experience with the hospital groups, particularly these 3 in our area, Concord Hospital is the most beneficial one to have an agreement with.
Well, and Bo helps us a lot, and they're closest to that hospital as well, so.
Yeah, so Bo actually has their agreement with that hospital, and Concord Hospital Systems have over 70 medical resource agreements with agencies between here and the Lakes region, so.
Yeah.
It's the most beneficial as far as what we get out of it, as far as education, oversight from the medical director, and equipment that we can obtain at no cost. It's a no-brainer to continue that agreement with Concord Hospital, in my opinion.
Well, thanks for filling out that grant, I think that's a great step on your part.
Yeah, while we're talking about grants, just to keep you guys in the loop as well, that's one of 4 grants that I've applied for. So earlier this year, I applied for a grant to cover the cost of the equipment that was requested in a warrant article out of our special, the ambulance revolving fund. So the ventilator, the IV pump, and the narcotic safe, I applied for a grant through the Gary Sinise Foundation. It's one of those, send us your application, we'll let you know, don't reach out to us type of deals, so I'm still waiting. The National Volunteer Fire Council had a second grant opportunity that I put in for. It was a $10,000 grant opportunity for equipment, so I applied for a grant to obtain 3 gas meters, vehicle chargers for those meters, calibration gas to be able to calibrate them, 3 portable radios and 6 portable radio batteries to be able to increase our effectiveness when it comes to air quality monitoring and communications. Another, between now and the end of the calendar year is when we'll find out. The 4th one I've gathered information on, it hasn't opened yet, but Firehouse Subs has a grant that will allow us an opportunity for up to $40,000. My intent with that is to do the research on what we need for a boat, and to be able to replace the boat that we're actually gonna hear a sealed bid on for tonight, so the timing is kind of ironic.
Oh, you did get one?
Got one back in the packet.
Okay.
So those 4 grants, that are out there. I did find out about another foundation that has grants for local communities in New Hampshire that, if for some reason the Gary Sinise Foundation opportunity was to fall through, we could probably apply for some of the medical equipment through that as well. So,
Nice.
the hope is to be able to spread that stuff around and obtain as much as we can to increase the service that we provide.
Yeah.
Can I put you on the spot tonight?
Sure.
How's the emergency services, since we have one full-timer in the station now?
Yeah, so,
What's your assessment after maybe 5 months of it?
my assessment is that, like anything, when you plan on it, you don't get it, and then as soon as it leaves, we get all the calls. It feels like, and maybe it's just my irrational fear that as soon as our daytime attendant goes home, that we start to get all of the calls and we run into the nighttime problems. There's been several times where it's been beneficial. We've been in the building, been pre-alerted for a medical call, and by the time the actual dispatch is coming, we're driving down the road. That same call, we were on our way back from the hospital when we got a call for another critically ill patient and responded from the road immediately. So there's certainly times where it's been very beneficial.
So we should get sick during the day.
Yeah, between the hours of 8 and 4, I would aim for.
Well, would you consider changing the work hours or work schedule?
Yep, I do consider changing the work hours, and the work hours are very flexible. So, based on staffing and based on the number of days that I have unstaffed, if I have any of these employees who are interested in working extra hours during the day, I have plenty of projects to keep them going, and they're allowed to stay in the building as long as they like. So, an example, I've got some of them who typically work in 8 to 4, and if they have a day where they're available until 6 or 7 o'clock and want to keep working on projects, they stay an extra 2 or 3 hours.
And they provide the coverage for the town?
They provide, either they're still able to respond and provide the coverage and continue working on all the projects that we have going on throughout the station.
What I have to say is thank you for the flexibility you're showing.
Oh, of course, yeah, no, I want it to be beneficial. We have the budgetary money, and it's certainly helpful for me to continue checking off all the boxes that we have.
I think this, to me, I think it's a service that's required for our citizens, and the thing is, I think it's improved already from what we've had a year ago.
I appreciate it.
And I think with the aging population here, I think it's important.
Very much. So, keep up the good work.
Thank you. So to move on to the ambulance, kind of a twofold deal here. The old ambulance, we were responding to a call the other day, and we had a catastrophic failure of one of the tires on the truck. It caused some damage to the vehicle, minor amount of damage. We were able to get mutual aid. There was no effect on patient care or patient outcome. But of course, this is an ambulance that we're looking to trade in for a new one, sometime within the next, hopefully 6 to 10 months.
There goes the resale value.
I haven't contacted the vendor that we're purchasing the new ambulance from. It was the cost of 2 tires, and then the cost of a wheel well liner insert for the vehicle itself. Temporarily, to get us back on the road, we had cut out a part of the wheel well liner, and put on the spare tire that we have at the station. But as of today, I went down to, Mr. G's, who is our preferred tire vendor, had 4 tires put on the ambulance, because we also had problems with the front tires, by severe vibration, when driving down the road. So, all in all, that's probably gonna cost us, between the 2 additional tires to replace the fronts, the 2 that needed to be replaced in the rear, and the wheel well liner will probably set us around $2,000.
And you have a maintenance line for that.
I do have a maintenance line for that, so that's the same maintenance line that the $5,000 came out of for engine one, so, doing okay with that. We're halfway through, almost halfway through the year, and I'm not quite 50% spent, so I don't have any severe concerns there, but.
And you'll send it in for that new liner at a later point.
Yeah, so I've contacted the vehicle's manufacturer, they've given me the price on the wheel well liner. It's a custom part, so while it's being made, we have a little bit of time, they'll mail it out to us, and then I do have a local mechanic who's.
Is it worthwhile to fix it if you're gonna trade it in?
You have to.
So we have to for 2 reasons, in order to retain value on the ambulance for the $11,000 trade-in that we're getting. I would assume, I haven't contacted the vendor to see if they would dock us, and I think it's without.
It can't be that much to replace that liner, is it?
No, it's the liner itself is $690, it's an aluminum, bent and welded liner, and then the bolt-in process for it, I would assume would be fairly easy.
Okay.
Which is why I'm estimating that this whole project kind of maxes out at $2,000. So to move on to ambulance one, the replacement, I'm still waiting to hear from the vendor on the very final, build process, the changes that we've made and things that we've had to add in and things that we've taken out of it to get all of our final adjustments on expenditures and credits. So when we signed, the original purchase and sale, in May of last year, the total delivered price of the vehicle was $346,256. The total between the 2 warrants for the capital reserve spend, and the expenditure from the ambulance revolving fund, totaled out to $350,000. So that left us with a little less than, $4,000 in that, available, in that line. So with some of the changes that we've made in relocating items to, make them better suited for use, and attendance in the back, to add a few things that we need for paramedic level equipment, and then subtracting a few credits for some items that we've removed. The new total for it is $350,504. So currently $504 over budget. That includes the $11,000 in trade, right? That's already factored into that account. And my biggest concern is that it doesn't include the mobile radio that we'll use to communicate with our dispatch center and with the hospitals when we're transporting people. That's, the mobile radio, $6,136.82.
What do you have in your equipment maintenance budget?
In my equipment maintenance budget currently,
To me, I would think that,
my equipment maintenance budget has a balance of $7,423 left in it to date.
Everyone was exhausted.
Correct. Now, my only hope for this, again, the only other thing I haven't gotten from the vendor yet is an estimated completion date for the build. I believe that they've already ordered the cab chassis, which typically takes the longest part of this build. Once they receive that and we have this final, revision to the purchase and sale signed, then we get put in a build slot. And that's when he's gonna be able to accurately tell me when we'll be able to receive the truck. I don't think it's gonna be any sooner than 6 months, and the only benefit to that is it would put us into the next fiscal year. So, I have a
So
couple of
your
options.
radio could be bought next year then, possibly.
The radio could be purchased next year.
or even a warrant article for it, for that matter.
Correct, yeah, no, and it would be a warrant, it would be a warrant to either spend from CIP or from, the ambulance.
But if
revolving
need
fund.
be, if you really tighten up your maintenance budget, you could actually do it with the funds you have available.
Correct, yeah,
I know the way the warrants are written up, you'll have to give them 1 check for the amount that we have that includes the warrants.
correct.
And then that $504 will have to either come out of your maintenance fund or something to that effect, 'cause
Yeah, tightening up the maintenance fund, I think I'll be able to cover the $504, I'm not concerned with that part of it. The radio was my biggest concern, obviously being a much larger expenditure. But again, just transparency on your end of it, I wanted to let you know that I think this will probably bleed into next year, where I'll be able to request those funds. And again, my intent is to not pull too much from our revolving accounts, hoping.
Drain 'em,
Yeah, hoping, well, so the revolving account too, after the expenditure for the ambulance, kinda sits around $42,000. That doesn't include any deposits that have been made for, for this current year.
So you could even pull on your warrant article from there for the radio.
Correct. And my hope is that, again, awarded the equipment through this Gary Sinise Foundation, not use the $22,000 that was requested, at town meeting. I haven't spent any of that money, we've kinda sat back on that until we can hear about the grant request.
Now, let me ask you this,
Time's on our side.
Yeah, correct.
if it is ready before the end of the year, when does the exchange of the other ambulance have to happen?
That's on us. I think when we take, well, I shouldn't say that's on us. I'd have to check with the vendor to see how much time they're willing to give us for an exchange. They're gonna want the vehicle, I haven't heard from him specifically, but I'm certain that
Because
they
when you get
probably
the
have
vehicle-
this.
Disassemble the current equipment that you're gonna transfer over, is what you're talking about.
Yeah, we have to decommission the
Or
first
fit on
ambulance
time
and,
too,
yeah,
on the new one.
yeah,
So depending on how much time he gives us, the fit-out time is, I'm thinking maybe, even if you took it at the end of the year and he gave you, I don't know, 3 months fit-up time.
Yeah.
We might be able to meet the warrant article.
sure. Yeah, I'm hopeful for a graceful time period here that'll meet all these requirements. The only thing that I think I'll meet any resistance on is that the trade-ins of these vehicles are generally already sold before this even happens. So they're purchasing an ambulance for $11,000 that they're.
So
gonna
that's why you
turn
can't
around.
let it go down in value.
Yeah, we can't let it go down in value, and they're probably they've already sold this, they know what they're gonna sell it for, they know
From what I
their overhead
understand, it
is.
sounds like a pretty good value for them though, that ambulance.
Yeah, these ambulances with, low mileage, relatively good maintenance, they make,
They're gonna make some good money on it.
yeah, when they turn around and they rehab it, change
It's
it,
the same company that's producing it, or is it a different company?
it's a different company.
Okay.
Yeah, so the company that produced the current ambulance is called AEV, and the company that we're purchasing the new ambulance from.
But
is
they
called
know the
Lifeline.
dilemma we have, that we are waiting on a new one before we can let it go.
They do, yeah, so with the ambulance is being traded into Lifeline, which is the company we're purchasing the new ambulance from, so they know there's gonna be a turnover time for decommissioning and then
Okay,
service
that's
for
good,
the
that's
ambulance. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Which, and of course, there's other things like the state inspection from the Bureau of EMS and things to be able to get it running, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like you may have a busy winter.
Yeah, it's gonna be it'll
Yeah.
take a bit. We've gotten some help on this stuff too. I wanna make sure that you guys are aware, our Fire Departments Association has helped out with some of the last minute urgent needs, so they helped out with a $1,400 bill to repair our stretcher that occurred, earlier in the year, so I'm digging through all of the avenues that I can find to make sure that we're not pulling from every line item that I have to get this stuff done, so we're.
Was that the new stretcher?
So no, yes, yeah, our newest stretcher.
And that one had to have $1,400 worth of repair already?
Yes, so there's a mechanism in the back that locks the stretcher down to the loading system in the ambulance, that had a failure of that latch. So it was only partially latching its way into the ambulance, which is a concern in two avenues. Obviously, we don't want the stretcher to move while the ambulance is in motion. But the second part of it is that through that latch, there's also a wireless connection to charge the battery for the stretcher. So we were running into issues where there was a lot of free movement in the stretcher while the vehicle was moving. And then when we would go to remove the stretcher from the ambulance to be able to load a patient onto it, the batteries were dead. So it was a kind of a twofold deal. It involved that latch, and then also the batteries actually being at a certain age. And the vendor was great about.
It's not that old, I thought that loading system was kind of
I thought
relatively.
we just one time, a year
Yes,
and a half,
yeah.
2 years
So
ago.
the load system itself, separate from the cot, the
Okay,
part that
okay.
failed was the piece that's on the stretcher, not the
Gotcha.
system itself,
Okay.
yeah. So,
I was remembering the same thing.
so that's all I've got, aside from the sealed bid.
And,
Okay.
one other thing is, you're selling tickets and you talk about, you're on video, when's your?
Oh,
talk
yes, so, not to blend official fire department business and fire department association business.
It's
but
associated.
This is fire department association. Our association is hosting our chicken barbecue, our annual chicken barbecue on June 22nd. So it's coming up pretty quick. It's Sunday. We have the two seatings from 12 to 2 and from 3 to 5 like we typically do. The prices haven't changed. It's still $10 for a child ticket, $15 for an adult. And the only thing the big thing that's changed is we just actually got it up and running to be able to accept payments online. So we have, through the fire department's Facebook page, I believe it was just recently shared to the community page, and we have some flyers here in the town office that he was
And
gracious
any member of
enough
the
to
fire department too.
What's that?
If you know a member.
And any member of the department, yeah, so tickets are still being sold in hand. The town office, Lean, Hope and Joe Marie have been great about, actually selling those tickets for us.
2
here
meal
as well.
sittings again,
2 meal sittings, correct.
12 and 4.
12 to 2 and 3 to 5. Yep. So, yeah, we're doing pretty well. I think the ticket sales are
Lunch and dinner.
pretty much in line with where we were at last year, so.
Yeah.
Dave's
We
not
How
have
many
old.
can you buy?
We have tickets, Dave,
Endless amounts.
Free tickets?
we have tickets.
If you're
Not
worried about
free.
giving away money, we also have a donation link. You don't have to necessarily buy chicken, you can just give us straight money, we're happy to
Free
accept
ride
it.
in the ambulance?
Yeah, for sure. Ride's much smoother now, we just had a motor vehicle accident tonight, and with our new tires, it was a very smooth ride,
Very good.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, well, thank you for the updates on everything, Brandon, and let us know how you're continuing to make out, and we'll work with you as best we can.
Great, appreciate it.
He wants to see the bid now.
Next thing we have on the agenda is a sealed bid for the fire department boat package. Bid closed June 12th at 4 P.M. I don't think it's in this one.
It's an envelope, it should be,
I
it's
wonder,
underneath.
there was no
it.
minimum bid, was it?
That's yours.
There was no minimum bid, no, in the bid that I put out, we do reserve the right to either reject bids or accept them based on what the bid is, so the onus is on us to be.
That was a $1 bid, it's not gonna cut it.
Probably not, no.
That's it.
The equipment itself is aged. I'm genuinely curious to see how much money we got in a bid here, but, the only other option for. State bid.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I'm sorry, the White Farm, the
Yeah,
state option.
they do pretty good there.
Yeah. So,
Do you have an idea of what commercially this would sell for?
I don't,
You know,
no. The boat itself, just to provide a little background, some of it's in the sealed bid request, the boat itself is a 1999. It's a rigid hull inflatable boat, and typically the largest problems that you run into at our areas are when the pontoons are no longer able to hold air.
Yeah.
This is.
And they become difficult to find because they're at the seams, and they all over the place. There's also an inflatable keel on the boat, which actually sits underneath the rigid deck on the boat itself. That becomes pretty difficult to repair when we find them. Over the years, I know that our department has actually repaired many leaks that they found. But currently, it doesn't hold air even while static and in the station.
What was the motor size?
It's a 15 horsepower Mercury outboard.
It'd be good for fishing, a little fishing.
4-stroke or 2?
I believe it's a 4-stroke. And then the trailer itself, I believe, is a 1986, the single axle.
The only bid we have is John R. Swimmerhurst III, Stark Highway South, and his bid price is $200 for the whole package.
My, he makes more money than that.
We do have the right to refuse any bid we want.
That's a tough one.
I think,
I think the boat itself is probably not seaworthy and not going to be seaworthy for anybody else. My impression is that the most valuable items out of this are going to be the motor and the trailer. And then of course there's always the expenditure of actually getting rid of the boat. Having to be able to take it to the dump or the transfer station, wherever it's going to go. There's probably going to be an expenditure on some of these parts to be able to get rid of that part of it.
is there a lot of metal on the boat itself that?
The boat itself, there's not, no, there's a wooden seat, the rest of it is plastic, and then there's rubber membrane.
so we have this sealed bid in front of us. What do you guys wanna do with it?
Well, the thing is, based upon the boat being really not seaworthy, so we're talking about a motor, okay, a motor, how old is the motor?
Motor's operational.
How old?
I don't know the age of the motor.
Okay,
I'm not
but
certain.
it's a small motor used, okay, and the other valuable part is the trailer.
Trailer,
And the trailer is probably as old as the boat.
older, 1986.
I'm leaning towards accepting the offer, but I'm open for discussion for other people though.
Well, I only reviewed a bid policy earlier today, cause it's on our agenda later tonight. Typically, we've taken the highest bidder on these sealed bids that we get in. But it does say in this new package that it should be at least what we consider fair market value, so
I think we're knocking on the door for a fair market value.
what are your thoughts, Frank?
I'll leave it in your hands. I don't, again, the only other option that we have is to send it to auction at the White Farm. And I'm not certain what it would draw there. I don't have any historical information of what items like this would sell for.
Plus they take a percentage too.
Correct.
Yeah, stuff there has actually come back better than I ever thought it would, but, I haven't seen this stuff, so I don't really wanna make a judgment on it. Your thoughts, Dana?
I don't think it's worthy to take that, only because I think even a 15 horsepower Mercury motor, even though it's used, those things fetch, you know, $1,000 or more.
Okay.
And a trailer, even if it's, you know, it's probably just a metal frame,
It's an aluminum frame.
trailer.
It's even better.
So, yeah, so there's not a lot of deteriorate, I see those aluminum frame trailers, especially now as the season, and, you know, people will easily get $400 to $800 just for a trailer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not to speak out there, either aluminum or galvanized, I'm not.
Yeah,
100%
right,
yeah.
right. But anyway, so my gut
Not rusty.
says,
So
I don't know if
we have one option to do, we can put it back out,
yeah,
for bids. I think Lee and I had talked about putting out, we didn't think we were gonna get one, so we were gonna redo it for another 2 weeks or whatever it is. And see if we get any others.
And I say that if we don't get any, then we send it to the White Farm.
When, I think that at this point, with how busy we are, I say, put it aside for the White Farm.
Yeah.
I mean, our time is
Are-
money too.
are we allowed to try and sell it commercially, knowing that that bid is there, and like, so, let's say we got a, you know, $600 offer on, you know, Marketplace or something like that, are we able to take something like that?
Well, we're gonna review policy later,
Okay,
and typically what we've done in the past, we've either done a sealed bid by the department head, which we open at this meeting, so
Yeah.
as if there's 3.
yeah,
We each open one, we read them, and we kinda go from there. And the other option is that we've sent them up to the state auction because, surprisingly a lot, like our Crown Vic, I think we got like $7,000 for it. I would've given you $1,000 for it. He smoked in it for
Sure, yeah,
20 years before we sent it up there, and somebody gave us like $7,000 for it, I couldn't
It was
believe it.
white interior, but it was yellow when we sold it.
And, so, you know, it's kinda odd, some things up there have gone for real good money and some things have gone for much money at all.
right.
So those are the two that we've used in the past.
I'm leaning White Farm.
Yeah.
I'd say just, let's move on.
Sure,
We put it out to bid, we gave it its chance locally. White Farm, if we get
Well, we
$400
could
for
put it
it,
out
we've
for
done
2 more weeks, and then if we don't get a reasonable bid, then some, White Farm's not till the end of the year.
oh, is it? Oh.
No, they have one in July and in the fall.
Oh, they do.
They have
Oh,
two.
they do,
Yeah, yeah. We don't get much notice now, they just give you the date and get your stuff in by this certain date.
You know where it is, Dan?
the one up on Clinton Street?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so the reason why I answered that is, I mean, obviously $200, I think is almost like just giving it away.
right.
It's not that far from that.
And I think where it came from his department, we could take these funds and accept them back, if we had a reasonable bid, and we could use it for some of his stuff this
Yeah,
year, you know, so. I wouldn't mind giving it another try here locally, let somebody local get it, but I think that,
White Farm, you get money in July, you could have it this year to use.
we could get it in 2 weeks too.
True. Is it a burden to let it go for 2 more weeks?
Well, the issue is, now that we know what this person's bid it on, if someone comes back 300 or 400, is that gonna be considered a fair, equitable bid? I
Right,
mean,
right.
and the
Dave.
information's out there.
No, Dave, it's on the camera, people are gonna get the numbers and then they'll just say 250, 300.
Well, they can, but you also get the chance of somebody saying 800, like Dana
Oh, I
said.
understand, but if they
It's
see the
highest bid.
video, if they see the video, they don't care.
Right, I mean, somebody could bid 100, it's not gonna
What,
work.
is there a time, is there a deadline for submitting stuff for the White Farm?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll get the flyer here shortly,
Okay,
and then they'll tell you the dates of the auction, and then the types of, disposal or drop-off period.
Let's
that
try
we
it
do.
for 2 more weeks here, and if it doesn't work, we'll send it to
no,
White Farm.
it's kind of nothing lost, right, to
Right.
try it for a couple of weeks, that's why if the deadline's not pressing on us.
Yeah, it's a low lift, I mean, I have the original document, the change in dates and times to reflect
Okay.
another period.
And I think we'll just
another-
notify
I
We're
have-
trying to get the most money
this
we can.
person that,
Of course,
you know,
yeah.
we'd like to have a higher bid than that.
So basically, we're rejecting his bid,
Yeah.
and we'll be putting it back out.
Under the same conditions.
Yeah, cause we could have somewhat close to market value at least, or
Yeah,
for the town. Okay, we'll put that back in our pile.
okay.
So when you say market value, it's right up here, over my head, I have no idea what.
Yeah, 15 horse Mercury's a nice motor for a lot of, there's common little, boats,
Yeah.
aluminum boats,
And even
like
though
fishing boats and things like that.
Anything
They're-
under 25 horse, any kid can run too.
And, right, and they're super reliable, right, they're made to last.
Okay.
No rust on the trailer.
No rust on the trail.
Okay, so we've gone through that and, here we go. Bid policy is the next thing on the agenda. Okay, this is the 640, if you would put that back in the file on the agenda.
Okay.
These are just things that we've gone through already. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
He has
Okay, you wanna
non-public.
put that in there, you spoke to that in the pile. Okay, Lean has made a draft, sale of town property policy. We've been kinda going as department heads come to us and suggest if they wanna sell it to them by themselves, or do like a sealed bid, or go on that state auction. This gives a little bit more
Structure.
structure to the method, and also gives us some of this, talk in here where, oh, thanks for printing these on the back, I love that.
Hey, I'm trying to save paper here.
It also gives us the disclaimers on here that we, don't have to accept every bid. The only thing is, when I read the other towns, I did see a couple of things that I wanted to pick up on and get in ours. And I think instead of doing a knee-jerk reaction and signing this tonight, let's look at that this week and we'll sign it at our next meeting with a few changes we all bring to the board,
I would agree with that.
okay?
That's fine.
So you sent this to us electronically, Lean, or?
I can, but to,
I think you
answer
did.
the question of an employee that asked about our policy, if there's anything that he's looking to sell, ask him to bring a list to the board
Yeah,
for
that's correct.
discussion.
Yep.
Until we
And I
finalize.
did, that was the, transfer station, and I did tell them, in the past, we would send stuff to the auction and or done sealed bids to the select board.
Okay.
And all the departments have been real good when they have something to sell, that they've come to the select board so far that I know.
Yeah, I don't think we've had I don't think we've had an issue, except, no, we've had some smaller issues in the past where property was sold without, the board even being notified of the property being sold.
So I couldn't even think of what it was in the other towns, but I do know there was one more item in there I wanted to have Lean enter into that. And, I'll read through it and give
Those
them
are
my
two samples I
recommendation.
received from
Yeah,
the
so you got
auditor.
what, Barrington and Exeter, I think?
Yeah, I have, the auditor provided us with that.
Okay.
Some of their wording in Barrington, I thought, might be better than our generic wording, only because I think it might be a little bit more specific. So let's look at that wording really close, cause how you word things means a little bit different sometimes, so. Alright, mailbox items. Those were non-publics here, I believe. And I'm gonna go to the mailbox items next here. We have an email from the chief on the, recognition of officers Tompkins and how he handled a sensitive situation. I think we all got a chance to read that in the past. And I think it's nice to see these letters coming in, showing our different departments doing a good job. also had some recognitions of the fire department, people helping out with different things as well.
You want Mike to initial this?
Yeah.
Or anything to initial, yeah.
Yeah, on the second
Mike,
page we can.
Thank you, Dave.
There's a public notice here, at the next meeting for the planning board on June 18th, there may be a quorum. Dana's the planning board representative, and I might go there because I've done a lot of the negotiation on the Lane property. I did meet with the Lanes this week to get the driveway permit signed for the state driveway permit. Return that back to Dawn, and she's gonna get it to, we put them in that pile, Mike will take it off once.
I'd just like to point out that Donna pointed out some information, how waiver of fees and how it doesn't, is that really the town of Dunbarton pursuing the subdivision? And she made some good recommendations and corrections of our perception of how fees do apply.
Correct, but in our agreement, the town is gonna.
We'll pick it up, right, but it's not totally, free fee.
Right,
Yeah, and that was understood that there would be some minor.
Yeah, and you plan for that appropriately, when you ask for the dollars.
yeah,
Okay, we have an update from Health Trust, an amendment on SB 297. The amendment passed in New Hampshire House of Representatives and will now go to the Senate for a vote. I think Lean's been forwarding us these emails as they've come about.
can I ask you while you're all together here, do you get the, NHMA notices? Am I duplicating your inbox?
No, I'm getting
Or-
it directly from you only, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's mainly from you.
okay, good, cause I didn't wanna bombard your.
No,
So
I
I did discover, at that meeting last week though, that they have so many different, NHMA has so many different lists. And so,
My list is up to date.
yeah, we might not be on
You are,
the legislative list.
oh, I know that you're on my list of town officials,
Yeah, but so.
but I think you have to sign up for that.
We have to sign up for
Yes.
for legislative updates.
Okay.
If we want those, and we
yeah.
probably haven't.
Okay, so I'm glad.
I have a letter
Just
here,
keep forwarding for now.
Yeah,
I have a letter here from, the ex-Dunbarton Fire Chief. He'd like to resign from the Emergency Management Director. He says it's been his privilege to serve as the town EMD and would like to thank all of the help and support he received from the Selectmen's office and other town department heads and employees and the current or past Board of Selectmen. I will continue to serve until you name a new EMD, so the town will continue to have someone in its place in case there would need assistance from the state or federal agencies. He recommends that we have the new fire chief as the, or jointly with the police chief, so. The fire chief and or the police chief are both jointly,
I like to go jointly so we can draw upon one if one's not available.
and I think we've talked about it,
it was a
recently.
different, it was the fire warden one before
It
this?
was the, it was something
Oh, it
else.
was, highway safety committee?
Yeah,
You sign
do you have any issue with, being jointly with the,
Not at all, be happy to.
so,
Does it make sense to be joint?
It does, and that was part of the conversation I was gonna have with Chief Remillard, if that wasn't discussed here. You know, obviously him being a full-time employee of the town, his availability is greater than mine, but, I think jointly, the two of us
if you
can,
wanna sign that.
can certainly be better than just one of us.
I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll put it together as the board's recommendation, we'll have Lean call the police chief and then have him reach out to you. Alright, then you guys can discuss it, you guys good with that?
And you're spot on, because you may be at your other job, and if this situation arises, he's available. About availability.
What's this non-reappointment, is that from Wigan as well?
No, I brought that along because I wasn't sure if it was listed on there. That's not part of the paperwork we sent to the,
It's a reappointment paper, and do
yeah,
that for Lean
it was
after?
just, this appointment is just strictly for fire and wardens and whatnot, so that,
Yeah, so this,
is a different,
the EMD is different from this, yeah, this is the reappointment for the Division of Forest and Lands for
Okay,
warden and deputy
right,
warden.
so
for the town.
that's the only reason why I attached that, cause I thought it was,
Is this MS 123 go with that?
oh, that was the town clerk, just, updating some of the emails. Obviously Brandon and our So that's the last one that she's missing is the
Oh,
EMD.
Okay, I have a quote here tonight, I asked Lean to put in this, mailbox. It's a quote for the police department, he spoke with us earlier about this, removing a non-bearing wall in the patrol room to create more space for an additional computer desk, etc. Greg Miller, gave him an estimate, not to exceed $3,500. And so the details are on the back of this page, must be here. But he's basically, looking to remove that wall, and, he's put a note down here, I read it here as it is. This is what it includes: pull a wall down, dealing with whatever wires are in there, patching all the holes in the ceiling and the wall, painting of the exterior walls and probable holes in the ceilings. Since I doubt any new paint will be blend good enough, we'll have to, it will stick out like a sore thumb, so we're gonna paint the entire ceiling. Pulling up of the carpet, installing some sort of vinyl plank flooring and leaving the 12x12 tiles alone on the opposite side of the wall. The transition from the two different floors would still be the same place. Includes all the supplies needed, including the cost of vinyl plank floor. He looked in the Home Depot and Lowe's for an average price, but if this job does happen, maybe he can find a sale or clearance that would work and save some costs. The only really unknown is which direction all the wires come from and how best to deal with it. Even if it's a mess, it wouldn't add significant money to the estimate. Let me know your thoughts and questions. I say he had talked about that, he is limited on space there, and it's a non-load bearing wall. It sounds like a reasonable price with the materials and labor that he's gonna use. I would just keep it capped at the $3,500 and have him make it work,
Coming from with his budget.
so,
Is it coming from within his budget?
this is gonna come from our maintenance
That's,
budget.
that's what I thought.
So I'm in consensus to go ahead and accept this bid for $3,500, from Greg Miller to do that work in the fire department
Police department.
and the police department. So I have a
I
second,
would concur, second that.
Dana second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that one is done for Greg Miller. Lean, you gonna let the chief know?
I will,
Okay. We also have another estimate here from, Greg Miller, it looks like, to construct a roof over the fire department AC unit. The AC unit, the total bid is $21,2620. Strip siding, install ice and snow flashing as needed, construct gable style roof over the AC unit to shed water and snow to the sides. Cover roof with shingles, supplies, posts, blocks, 4x4s, AZAC trim, plywood, ice and snow shield, flashing, J-channel hangers and fasteners. So the labor was $13.50 and the materials were $7.76. It sounds reasonable, I think they're trying to, save the ice and snow from sliding off
I
the
just-
metal roof and hitting
Is
it.
this the, mini split,
it was
new-
just
the
installed.
new unit one?
The
Yes.
condenser for the
I just have a concern, the thing is, from an air conditioning point of view, is the roof gonna, it works on air going through the system.
Yeah.
Is it gonna decrease the efficiency of the unit, now you're having some, blocking of the air is gonna be high enough off the ground, off this, from the bottom, top of the air conditioning unit? How high is it gonna be, is it gonna be low, high, medium? And I'd like to get, rather than a HV guy would like to have him answer that. In other words,
They roofed these ones over here, they left it up for enough.
yeah,
And
but
the same
I think
with
they-
our building here, we have three of
okay.
them.
I just wanna make sure it doesn't interfere with the air flow through.
I think he could always, he could chat with the,
JR.
the plumber that installed it to make sure that they're meeting minimum.
That's all I would-
Yeah,
Yeah,
Because the thing is, then then the electric bill goes up, because it's not working as well.
yeah.
And if I understand these correctly, cause I've seen it before, all the air from the condenser units is out horizontally, through a fan.
Yes,
blowing out.
yeah, there is a fan that faces
And
outward away
I
from
don't
the
believe,
building.
other than the 4x4 posts that I see here, that there'd be anything else horizontally blocking.
Horizontally, I don't believe so.
Then that would be good, then, I just worried that some of the air conditioners do go vertical.
Yeah, right, the old central ACs
Yeah. Yeah.
were, used to blow up,
Yeah.
but these new ones go out horizontally.
It's one of the separate systems go in.
Yeah, so it's an outside condenser that runs lines into the mini split head itself inside.
So it does it heat also?
I would assume
It
this
does
is,
have a heat pump
this
as
is
well.
heat, yeah,
Yeah.
They have a solid top to them.
yeah.
Okay. That was my only concern.
Yeah.
I hate to have efficiency go away.
Same.
Yeah, they're made to withstand normal snow accumulation, but not stuff
Nice.
sliding off of a roof.
Right,
Would
exactly.
crush 'em.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
Well, especially ice,
Everyone
freezing.
we've had installed in the other buildings all have a roof over them.
Yeah, especially if it's on that side. If it's on the peak
Is it-
side of a
Yeah,
building,
No.
you don't need them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, on the gable end, sure.
on the gable end, that's it.
Who's done the ones over here? On yours?
Tom?
yeah, Tom Casano, but he didn't do the roof system, I think we probably had Kyle Parker, our
Okay.
carpenter at the time. And
Okay, so moving on to the agenda, on the mailboxes, we have a, email in here from Chris Remillard stating that, our parking ordinance violations came in. The compact vehicle section, specifically the town office parking lot, is unenforceable until a sign is posted. I myself personally have gone by there since we signed this ordinance and seen the big vehicles parked on the corner. There's really nowhere for them to park if they're gonna eat there. They park right along just past the pole on the roadway. I know it is a little cumbersome to come around them. We are a small town, I don't know, it seems to me like we're overdoing it a little bit. I know that, Jeff gave this back to us and said that something didn't apply, cause it wasn't for the whole town or something, this. I can't remember what Jeff said, but, a copy of this was given to Jeff to put the sign up there.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like he wanted to do the sign for some reason.
I don't recall, he never spoke to me about it.
He said something to me and I cannot remember from the life of me what it
Right,
was.
well,
I just read through it to see if I could remember, but if we
I thought
just,
at the time when we voted on that night, he was in support of the, let's try a sign.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
he
it's
said,
simple enough.
he said it didn't matter to him one way or the other, the person that was gonna have to do all the work was the police department, he would just get his sign up and then his job would be
Right.
done.
so I guess let's just ask him again about the sign if he has an issue.
Dave, wouldn't that hinder, emergency vehicles possibly though? If
That-
those trucks were in the way?
They park half on the lawn there, they're not really, they don't really block it 100%. It's not as easy to see around them,
Yeah,
but really they're talking about the big trucks, if they're parking up on the street or one thing, they're talking about those first two parking spots. If you do a bigger vehicle there, it's hard to make the corner here.
yeah.
And
I've had
so
a hard time
So
with
the correct
myself.
sign he's looking for is compact cars?
Compact vehicle only on those two spots.
2 spots.
Right to the left of that no overnight parking sign.
Yeah.
But we're not
Wait.
striping it, we're not
No,
outlining
no,
it,
we're
it's
not.
just gonna say compact.
Yep.
And we're not even gonna put, no parking this side of the street, I don't think, because there's,
Right, it was
Like
just
comes to
compact
the
cars.
landscape.
Compact cars, that was real
That
simple.
was like the first step to say, let's see if we can, you know,
Nip it a little bit.
yeah.
Okay,
okay,
got it.
alright. We have a planning board notice to abutters for the proposed 2-lot subdivision on lot F30305 for Catherine Lane. And it's scheduled for June 18th, which I'm gonna stick in my phone right now, in case they have any questions of me.
Wednesday, 7 o'clock, at the library. Second floor.
Oh, that's a busy day for me. 7. Planning will be that night, so if anybody wants to, attend.
there aren't any anticipated bumps in the road over this, it's a straightforward.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Should be fairly straightforward.
But under advisement from our town attorney, whenever there's two selectmen present, we have to publicly notice it.
Yeah.
And
I'm only going
remind
if they
you,
have any questions with me.
and remind you not to conduct business other than being there for that.
Agenda.
Yeah,
Oh, you,
yeah.
You
Shouldn't
just give it
say
back?
paper so much.
oh,
I give it back with good, bad, or indifferent. Okay, mailbox items are done. Open up one more time for public comment. Okay, that being said, I'm gonna go into the first non-public.
I make a motion.
Excuse me? Am I not public?
Are you what?
you had 3.5 seconds. So-
You wanna talk again?
Use up your time.
I didn't talk once, I.
Well, I'm not ending our meeting, we're gonna come back afterwards.
After non-public?
Yeah, we always do. We come back.
No, it should be done now. I just wanna inform the board about the hearings that have been happening all week,
Oh.
the revamp. And, the company, awarded that bid, said it's been going very well. Tomorrow is their last day. They will take take calls until the end of close tomorrow. And they will make sure that if they come scraggling in, they will make sure they take care of them, just to try to avoid, an abatement process in the future.
I did call them today myself, cause I haven't had a chance, and, they did say that we'd get back to me within a week or two. And I told them over the phone it's fine with me, so, they were very, forthcoming with it, and they were like, oh, we're done, we're not taking any more people.
Right.
I just wanna put note for what Lean's doing out there. Lean's been educating a lot of people coming into her office, and that's mitigating a lot of people complaining about it. I complained about mine, and Lean said, read and read, and then look at some of your neighbors online, and I did. I went online, I'm saying, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut.
You wanna give us more money?
No, I don't. I don't wanna pay more taxes than I want to, and, but I thought, the education being done by that front office, kudos.
I had one other thing, and it just came and went, so,
I'll go to the select board if you think of it again.
okay.
Anything else from you, Dan? I know you did a lot of talking tonight, but any win left?
No, nothing tonight.
All right, Mike?
I just thought the chief put out, chief, the police department put out an email regarding an incident that happened at Clough State Park. And I thought the officer handled it well, he needed backup, but it was essentially a non-registered vehicle, intoxication on Mansion Road, pulling wheelies
From out of state.
from out of state.
Yeah.
And the situation could have got a little more ugly, and it did not. But it's, he's gonna be talking to the Department of Fish and Game about it, because they were the last to show up on the scene, it was their problem. And so there may be, we may as a select board intercede and maybe talk to Fish and Game, because it's a potential safety problem, not only to our officers, but to the general public. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
It's a good read on that, though.
Can I request a revisit to your question of, do I have anything?
After Lean.
I'm fading now, so we're a little
Yeah, go
later than
ahead.
we usually.
Go ahead, Dana.
I did, you reminded me, I met with Chief Remillard this Wednesday, and just as an FYI, we're actually working on the fact that there is what they call TomTom data, which is electronic data that would provide you information on speeds of vehicles on any section of town roads. And so you can actually define from this address to this address, what are the average speeds over a certain period of time. And I'm actually assisting just from a data perspective on how we could gather that information. We're actually doing a trial we're gonna send in half a dozen requests of some various areas of town. It's all based on tracking of people's cell phones in terms of how fast they're going and things like that. And we'll actually see, he's actually very interested to know if there's resident complaints or if there's areas of town that should be patrolled more regularly due to high speeds. But all of this data is available, there's 2 years of historical data, and you could ask for any period of time over any.
Big brother getting to us
Over,
again.
yes, over any section of road. It potentially invalidates some of the need for the speed signs that he has. Speed signs are good for making people slow down or making people aware.
So it will tell the rates and numbers,
Yes,
I'm interested.
yes.
So I
It
know
is
if you-
it's
yeah.
very interesting, so we're experimenting with that to see how valuable the data is and what.
I will say those flashing signs work, 'cause even myself as much I work in there in the office and everything else, but when you're coming down these hills, you're kinda coasting. And you don't realize, most of the current cars today coast at 35 or 40.
Yeah, yeah,
Coasting at 30 is almost unheard of, when you just have a slight slope, you have to put your brakes on.
and our assessment was the same, for visibility and for citizen awareness, the signs are good. For data collection, this may actually replace the data collection piece of it. And there are some, he mentioned, and I mentioned, there are some towns that have permanent signs up, Francistown, I think, is one of them, that just has a town, a sign as you're coming into town, and it's always there, it just tells you what your speed is, and it'll tell you to slow down, you've seen the ones that'll blink at you, Bo has one
I don't like
up
the
in
ones that
the,
holler at me.
I forget what that road is.
Boom,
What's that?
boom.
Birchdale Road.
Birchdale Road, yeah, they have a slow down thing, so for citizen awareness, they're good. This would only replace the data collection piece of it, but, so anyway, I just figured I'd mention, I met with him Wednesday.
Okay. I have nothing further either.
Alright, I thought of something else, so I'll just bring you up to speed.
Lynn,
Last week, we handled a crisis of the toilet not working in the library.
Oh.
That has been taken care of and installed very promptly.
that's dirty talk.
Mary is very happy, she doesn't smell any types of exhaust to date. He's tested it once, in the middle of this week, so he feels very confident that we probably have, fixed the problem, so.
I did go and meet the contractor on site and looked at what they were doing, and they were putting a real decent pitch to it.
Yeah, I heard
It
that.
wasn't on the new construction either, it was on the old building, so.
Yeah.
That was kinda good, cause it's nothing that they did during the new construction, but I did ask him, to give us an estimate on getting the, AC and heat pump for additional heat on the second floor up there. And I gave him all the specifications we had already from Brookside Mechanical, to get them for apples and apples, and, other than he doesn't do a lot of tin work, everything else is stuff that he does always, so he's gonna get some numbers on doing the tin work for the months.
When you're up there, on the 13th, I'm sorry, the next planning board meeting, please look at the acoustics, because I had some complaints about the acoustics on the planning board meeting last time.
Can I just point out that in that picture, the ceiling height is a lot lower and closer to the windows? And is it possible that when the tin fell down, they
No,
just,
it's not,
it's not?
no, those lights are hanging way down from the ceiling,
True, but,
the ceiling's always been
But the thing
14
is,
feet.
Dave, I just asked you, to pay attention to the acoustics, see what you think.
Now that you guys have brought that up, when I was meeting over there on Byron's property, when I spoke to the Byrons, Ellen Byron's gonna give me some information, cause we've had people who can hear well tend to be able to hear up there, but if you have any type of hearing aid, it's real echoey in there, especially on the hearing aids. And there's a I'm gonna say telecom just for a lack of a better word, that goes around the perimeter of the room like this. And people with hearing aids pick up from this and hear exactly what's being said in the microphone. They don't hear any of the other noise around, so it picks up directly on what's going around the room, and he's gonna give me information on that. It sounds like it's been around forever, he said, it's a low-tech thing they've done in public buildings for years, and it's all part of that handicap, disabilities act, where people with hearing, and it's more or less a wire that goes around the room that allows people with hearing aids to direct, feed to that,
But some of the complaints are coming from people without hearing aids too.
or maybe they need it.
Can't please everybody.
Yeah, you'll never please everybody
Oh,
like,
I know.
and I've been to several things up there, and I've been able to hear very well.
Likewise,
On all of them, so-
likewise, and so I think
Yeah,
it's,
so-
but the thing is, if we don't respond to it, I think we're wrong, we have to.
If you're on the verge of needing hearing aids and you don't think you are, you know, it's,
But the thing is, when you have a small meeting, a very small meeting, in that great big room, I'm even thinking that, you know those office petitions that you can move, they're movable, and you put them up around 8 feet? Hey, make a little cubicle for them. But the
yeah.
thing is, but I don't wanna spend any more money unless we can ascertain how
But you know,
real
like,
is the
we have
problem.
that little entry area, if they wanna have a small meeting, we have that entry area that they could use for.
And I agree with you, I think we should start pushing that, especially when you have a smaller meeting. because it's like three people in a huge room.
Mike,
Go
you
ahead.
buy those cubicles and you gotta store them someplace.
Oh, I know,
Oh,
I know.
who's gonna move them, me?
Oh, yeah,
Another
Yeah,
job?
not just that, it'll scratch the new floor
Oh, yeah.
all up, it's just
you can't please
another
everybody,
hassle.
just can't do it.
But I just, let's assess it and see what you think.
And you know, some people don't do the simple thing of sitting closer. Okay, you know, you gotta,
Sure,
they gotta sit in the back row there instead
Yeah.
of sitting up where you can.
Well,
Right.
the thing
I
is,
think
and we've
people-
authorized quotes on
Mary has
the,
asked people to move to the front.
Cause I got it with the microphone and
Yeah.
without the microphone, and I thought it was fine, but that's
Mm-hmm.
just me.
I don't see a problem, I agree, again, if you're on the, maybe you do need hearing aids for some people.
So anyway, Alan's gonna bring that in, maybe we can look into if it's a low price option, we can say, hey, we have done something about it.
Okay. One more thing, in your package, you have a personnel policy. Dana has been in the office asking several, interesting questions. I will send it to you electronically, but what I'd like you to do is take a look at that and maybe report back to me the page and the section that you want to address, and with any thought, so that I can put it in a chronological order, and then when we gather enough information, have a workshop so that we can go over it.
For Dana's history in the past, we normally would meet one time during the summer, have an afternoon workshop, and any changes to the personnel plan, we would like accumulate them during the year, and then make one big,
We make it
push.
a public meeting and we do it in the afternoon,
Okay.
get all the changes and updates.
Yeah.
There's some changes, we had for COVID that can be pulled out probably now, I don't know if we've done that, and
Yeah, but it's worth looking at. It could be a 20-minute meeting, it could be a 2-hour meeting.
it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, all the department heads have spoken now. I'm gonna make a motion that we, go into non-public per RSA 91 dash A, colon 3,
Hallelujah.
Roman numeral 2,